about what the nation is doing to exactly crack down on the flow of migrants trying to get into our country.
Griff Jenkins is live in Washington as thousands of soldiers head to the border. Griff.
They are indeed. Good morning, Dan, Ainsley, and Steve. It's all eyes on Mexico this week. Mexico's Foreign Minister, Marcelo Ebrard, says the deployment of 6,000 National Guard troops to their southern border will be complete today. But will that be enough to stop the flow of migrants that brought more than 130,000 illegal immigrants across our border last month, or stop migrants freely crossing the Suchiate River from Guatemala, as we showed you last month, when it cost us just $2 to raft unimpeded into Mexico? When Mexico's president, Andres Manuel López Obrador, took over, border enforcement was not a priority. Now, Mexico is trying after, as you mentioned, pressure from President Trump's threat of tariffs. Mexico has increased detentions and deportations, and more migrants are remaining in Mexico while their asylum claims play out. But Mexico is not closer to agreeing to a safe third country agreement that would require migrants to seek asylum in Mexico rather than the U.S., and they are seeing a surge of Africans from Cameroon, Angola, and the Congo. But while the president has at least a willing partner in Mexico, he was quick to point out that he still doesn't have one in Washington.
The hardest is usually Congress. I find Congress more difficult, frankly, than many of the foreign leaders. There's so many things like the border. The border should be done, George. The border, the Democrats should come in 15 minutes to an hour, we can have it all solved. It's so simple.
Unless you should think that the crisis has slowed down, I just got a text from one of our Rio Grande Valley Border Patrol agents. Says there were more than 4,100 arrests this weekend. Guys.
That's a lot. All right, Griff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Griff. All right, let's bring in the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Mitch McConnell. Senator, great to have you here. Thank you. What's your reaction to what's happening there on the border and what's happening in D.C. with these congressmen and women not voting to really crack down on the border problem?
Yeah, it's a real problem. Last week or two ago, we passed a supplemental for the floods, storms, damages we had in Puerto Rico and Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Iowa, Nebraska. In the Senate, we wanted to add to it roughly $5 billion the president's requested to deal not with the wall, but just the humanitarian part of the crisis at the border. The Democrats insisted on stripping it out. So I'm going to bring it up freestanding next week and see if they really aren't interested in dealing with this massive humanity that we have to take care of at the border. What's the objection? This is not about the wall, but about the humanitarian crisis. Actually, I think it's safe to say the president is getting more cooperation out of Mexico than he is out of congressional Democrats.
He said too.
Do you think, and we've talked about this on this program, we've had experts who've come in and they've said, look, the Democrats don't want to give the president a win, and that would be a big win for him, so they're going to deny that at any cost. Do you agree with that?
I think they're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Whatever he's for, they are reflexively against. But this is humanitarian. This is not, we want to build a wall. We think the president's made a good case for that. That's not what this is about. This is just the humanitarian part of the problem on our side, obviously, of the border.
Right. Well, now that the Democrats have had to abandon this silly position that it's not a crisis, it's increasingly obvious to anyone who watches the news. How do you think this plays in 2020? Everybody's focused on the presidential election, but let's be honest, it's a really tough competitive map for you on the Senate side. Not as conducive to wins as it was the last time. You're defending a lot of seats.
Yeah, well, holding the Senate's really important. What we're seeing now on the Democratic side is a debate about whether socialism would be a good thing for America.
Right, crazy.
I never thought in my lifetime we'd be debating the free enterprise system in this country. That's what we're debating. If we hold the Senate, I've sort of, with a smile on my face, declared I'm the Grim Reaper. What I meant was none of these socialist schemes, the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, are going to pass the Senate. And, of course, when the president's reelected, that'd be the backstop as well to veto that kind of stuff. That would fundamentally change America into something it's never, ever been.
Health care is a big issue for the voters.